Good morning. All right, we're glad you're here. All right, so many moons ago, I was a seminary student at Bethel Seminary. And one of the first classes I had to take was evangelism. And it was required for all the students, and so it was one of the bigger classes. It was like 50 guys. Our normal class was about 25. And so there's 50 guys in this room, and the teacher hands out the syllabus, and he introduces himself, and he's showing us the basics of what we have to know. And then he says, if you look in your syllabus, I have the whole schedule for you of what we're going to study, when we're going to study it, and when your assignments are due. And you'll notice that in your syllabus that your homework is evangelism. 20 to 30 hours of evangelism outside of the class. All right, so I just want you to imagine this a little bit. Let's just say that we had a Sunday school class, and the Sunday school teacher said, oh, and by the way, your homework is to do evangelism. Like, how would you react? All right, we're in seminary, but we're people too, and we had the same reaction. It was like, uh-oh. You mean I have to actually go do it? And the teacher's response was, okay, you guys, if we're going to study this, like, why would we study it if we aren't going to actually do it? Good point, right? So that was our assignment. And it's funny that we do have kind of this expectation that sometimes we come to church, we come to Sunday school, we come to the various classes, and we expect to learn about something that we have no intention of applying. We don't even think about, okay, how does this affect me tomorrow when I go to work or to school or wherever it is? And when Jesus left the earth, the last thing he says to his disciples is, I have homework for you. Go into all the world and preach the gospel, and baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And that's in Matthew 28:18. Now, let me just simplify that statement. Basically, Jesus says, all authority has been given to me, so go share this, tell people, and teach them about me. And that's just kind of the basic summary of what he's telling his disciples, right? And we call it the Great Commission because we believe that that wasn't just true for the original disciples. We believe that that's true for us. And yet there is this thing where we kind of don't expect to apply it. We kind of assume, well, that's for someone else. We'll pay someone to do that, or we'll let those people who are specially skilled at it, we're going to let them do it, and we're going to avoid that ourselves. So theoretically, we know that that's what we're supposed to do, but we're afraid to do it. Now, some of you right now are thinking to yourself, okay, I'm in the wrong room, I'm at the wrong church service, like, I got to get out of here. Because it's like, I don't want to do that. And before you run screaming from the room, let me just tell you a little bit more about our evangelism class. In our evangelism class, the teacher started every time the same way. He would say, okay guys, who's going to share? And what he meant by that was, who's going to share an experience that you've had evangelizing this last week? And the first couple of weeks, it was pretty slow. Maybe one or two people might share something. But in the later weeks, there was all these stories coming out. And about halfway through, one of the guys said, look, I did the worst possible presentation of the gospel ever known to mankind. And the person looked at me and said, I have got to have that. Show me how. You know, This whole gospel thing isn't about how well we share it, and it just isn't about us at all. It's about God doing something through us in order to share Jesus. And I will tell you that as we went through the class, those first 10 to 15 minutes, or even sometimes like up to 20 and 30 minutes, those times of all of us sharing what had happened were electric. It was amazing, the stories that were happening all around us. And it began to be my favorite class to attend, and even my favorite class to do the homework. Now, here's what I'm afraid you're going to hear. I'm afraid you're going to hear me say, you ought to be evangelizing. And that is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, if you're not sharing Jesus, you're missing out. Yeah. Because it is an awesome and amazing thing to do. I know that there's this kind of sense of terror that goes off inside of us, but it is a thrill. There is this sense of excitement that happens. And we do all kinds of things to add a thrill to our life, right? For some people, they go to action flicks because, there's that sense of we get to sit in the chair and watch the action happen on the screen, and our adrenaline kind of kicks in as we identify with the character, and we get that adrenaline rush. And we get a rush, some people, from competition. Like, can I run faster, or can I do something better than everybody else? And there's that rush of excitement of, can I do it the best? Other people go into more extreme versions. Have you ever done a high ropes course? Have you ever gone up, like where they have the ropes like up in the trees, and you go and you walk across this little narrow, and they put a safety line on you, but you're like way up there? Yeah. And that can be an adrenaline rush. Or some people do whitewater rafting. Some people drive fast cars. Some people jump off of platforms with a cord tied around their ankle. Bungee jumping. There are people who even jump out of perfectly good airplanes for an emotional rush, right? And I'm just saying that out of all those things, you can get an emotional rush, but there's this sense of spiritual rush that happens when you share Jesus. So it's not just an emotional rush, it's this spiritual rush. Because you know what? When we share Jesus, we have the opportunity to actually change eternity. Not just, make a difference for people for a week or a month or a year. We have the opportunity to shift someone's eternity to a completely different destination. And that can be amazing. So I'll be honest, I get a thrill out of witnessing. I actually enjoy it. Now, there is that part of me that is nervous about doing it, but that's part of the rush, right? And there's some of you who have already joined in. You've done the P3 card. 16 people so far have filled one out, which I'm really pleased with. We have them sitting out by the door. If you want to fill one out, you tear off the one portion, drop it in, let us know that you're doing it, take the other portion home, fill out the names that you're going to be praying for. And what you're doing is you're starting to pray for people and pray for the opportunity to share Jesus with them. And it's just a great way to get started. All right, well, that was the intro. So let's dive in. We're going to Romans chapter 10, starting at verse 14. I encourage you to look that up. And, when Peggy and my kids were still small, we were planting a church, and Peggy was doing a small group with some of the ladies from the church, and some of the ladies in the church were fairly new to our church, and some of them were actually still trying to figure out if Jesus was the way to go or not. They were still asking that question. They're coming to church on Sunday, but really the question is, like, do I really want to do this Christianity thing or not? And Peggy came to me and she said, so watch the kids. So I would come home, I would watch the kids while she had, and we'd be in the family room, and she would be in the living room with the Bible study, and she did it during the day. So I came home and I was watching the kids, and Peggy said, pray for me because the curriculum has me sharing the gospel this week. So I'm in playing with the kids, and I'm praying with her, and one of the ladies who's attending the group is Sally, who is our next door neighbor. Sally and her husband sold us their home, and they built a home right next to us, and so they are just right over there. And as I'm playing with the kids, all of a sudden I hear Sally's voice, and Sally's voice is really agitated. She is really upset. The trouble is I'm far enough away that I can't hear what she's actually saying, and so I'm praying, playing with the kids, keeping them busy, but you know what? Here's what scares us the most, is that in a little town where we kind of know everybody, there is the potential to build, shall I say, enemies by sharing the gospel, right? It's our friends, it's our neighbors, it's the people we know. And if we share Jesus, there is that risk that someone is going to be unhappy. And that's what we fear the most when we share Jesus. So let's read Romans 10, starting at verse 14. And we actually read this together a little bit ago, but this is a great review. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news. All right, now, I could really sit down with you and we could look at all the Greek and we could search it all out and pick our way through it. But let's just cut to the chase because it's pretty simple, isn't it? Basically what these verses are saying is, how can our friends, family, and neighbors know unless someone talks to them? And how can someone talk to them unless Jesus sends them out? And then here's what I would add. And what if Jesus is sending me? That's where it gets scary, doesn't it? Yeah, and these friends and family and neighbors, they already know you. Hopefully they love you. And so Jesus has placed you in a situation where you are close to them, you have a relationship with them, you have conversations with them, maybe even on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And he's placed you there as an opportunity to share who he is with them. And overall, here's what I'm asking you to consider. I'm asking you to consider not forcing it on people, but not avoiding it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you need to stomp over there, put your hands on your hips and shake your finger at them and go you need Jesus. You're dying and going to hell, and hit them full force. But I'm also asking you to stop dancing around the issue or the thought. Because there's people who come to us and their lives aren't going well. They're struggling. They're unhappy and we tend to avoid telling them the real answer that's going to make a difference. And why do we do that? We avoid it because we're afraid that the same experience that Peggy had with our neighbor, like that you're going to have that experience of, now this person is angry with me. Well, going back to that story, after all the ladies had left, I came out of the family room and I was like, Peggy, what happened? I heard Sally was agitated. I just couldn't hear what she was saying. And Peggy explained that she had gone through the gospel and explained it and showed them from the Bible what it said. And Sally got really angry. And Peggy was like, I was sure Sally was upset with me until she got to the point where she said, I have faithfully attended church for 40 years. I've taught Sunday school, I have volunteered, and nobody told me. Nobody told me. We're so worried that people will be upset that we do tell them that we don't consider the fact of how upset they're going to be if we don't tell them. I mean, if Jesus is really the answer, why wouldn't we give them the answer? Now, again, don't cram it down their throat. Just tell them what Jesus has done for you. Just share. You know, this year has been amazing, hasn't it? Not only do we have the coronavirus, but we have riots, we have incredible storms happening. Like, it's just one thing after another. And people are asking themselves, like, what's going on? And is there any hope? And like, what's going to happen? And we sit on the sidelines and we don't say anything. But, I mean, if we're going to claim that we have the answer, that Jesus is the answer to all this, then why wouldn't we just share that? Honestly, this evangelism thing, I think we try to make it difficult. We make it hard on ourselves. It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. This one lady came to me and she said, well, is it okay? I have this banana bread, world famous banana bread recipe that is just killer. And so what I do is I bake up a bunch of these because I like to bake, and I bring them to my neighbors, and I do that as a way to just build a relationship with them so that I can invite them to church. Is that okay? And I said, no, that's not okay. You didn't bring me any. But, you know, come and evangelize me. It's not complicated. It's not hard. Just be nice to people. I had an elder who got a new job. And it didn't take long working with his boss. His boss began to relate his home life, and his home life was completely falling apart. He and his wife were in the process of a divorce. And this man was broken. He had not been faithful to his wife. And he knew he was wrong. And so this elder said, you know what? Our church is a place of grace and love. Just come with me to church. So this guy started coming to church. And within a few weeks, he had accepted Christ. And then another few weeks, and his wife started attending with him. And in a couple of weeks, they were in counseling together. And, I don't know, a month, they were living together. A couple months later, I did their baptism. A few months later, they were reaching out to other people and telling other people about this amazing thing that had happened to them. It's not complicated. It's just simply going like, okay, if you're struggling, I know someone who can help. And that's not terribly threatening. You know, here's the question that I ask myself. Do I have beautiful feet? Am I the kind of guy that delivers good news? You know what? We act like the gospel is this terrible, awful thing. Like, that people should be offended and terrified. And here's the context of the whole beautiful feet thing. Okay, so the Apostle Paul in chapter 10 is actually talking about the Israelites have rejected the gospel. He's in the middle of that whole statement. And he's saying that they've not been open to Jesus. And he slips in the essence of the gospel. If you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And so there's that quick explanation of the gospel. And then after he gets done talking about how beautiful the feet of people who bring good news, here's the original picture. It comes from Isaiah chapter 52, verse 7. And the original picture is that when there was a war, there would be the battle, and then there would be someone would run from the battle lines and run back to the city and announce to them how it's going. And the person who did that, when they brought good news and said, you guys, we won. We did it. You know, even their feet look good. Right? You know, and the fact that they ran, that's good news, and it's a beautiful thing. And the Apostle Paul picks up on that picture in Isaiah 52 and says, you know, this isn't condemnation that we're delivering. This isn't something negative. We're delivering good news. The news is that I was a sinner. I was abandoning God. And while I was still doing that, Christ died for me to set me free from everything that I've done. And not only that, he sent his Spirit inside of me to transform me and to make me into a new person. That is good news. And so don't make it a formula. Don't make it into something complicated. Just tell people the good news. Is that something that you're willing to do? Is that an attitude that you're willing to carry as you go through this week? Is that an attitude that you're willing to pray about? Because that's what the P3 is all about. It's praying for 3 individuals or 3 families for 3 minutes each day for the next 3 months. That's what the commitment is. And when you start praying this way, things happen. Actually, you know what? I've had a discussion with God recently. I was like, God, I haven't had the opportunity to personally share Jesus with anyone for I don't know how long. Come on, it's time. Give me an opportunity. And I'm trying to build relationships with people around me so that we can have those types of conversations. And I can just deliver the good news. And I'm just here encouraging you to open up your life and let God do that for you. I'm going to let you just stop and pray and ask God, is there someone you want me to start getting ready to share that good news? Maybe you've done the P3 thing already, like 16 people have already committed to that. Maybe you want to just take a minute and pray for them now. Maybe you've never made the decision yourself to surrender to Jesus and let him take the leadership in your life. Now would be a great time to do that too. Spend this time in prayer, and I'll close the service with prayer in just a minute.